to 365 cozy sleep bedtime stories, where we listen, relax, and fall asleep together. Sleep is not only the foundation of health, but also the source of wealth. Every night of deep sleep is laying a solid foundation for our health and happiness. My name is Smith Yao, and I am here to accompany you to relax and help you find inner peace, because I firmly believe that good sleep is our most precious wealth. Thank you for subscribing. Turn on the little bell and enter a new day of good sleep. Welcome to leave a message in the comment area. Tonight, we will travel through time and space and walk into an ancient winery on the outskirts of Athens. Here, the vines sway in the breeze. The sun shines on the olive trees, and the air is filled with the aroma of grapes that are about to be brewed into fine wine. This is not only the birthplace of fine wine, but also a symbol of investment wisdom. Imagine the soft breeze gently blowing across the golden vineyards, and hear the gurgling water and the fragrance of the soil in the distance. Every grape is absorbing the energy of the earth and slowly maturing, just as smart investors harvest the accumulation of wealth in the precipitation of time. Now, find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. When you inhale, feel the air entering your body, bringing fresh energy. The winery owners in Athens know that the value of wine does not come from a short brewing period, but from the mellow return after years of precipitation. This is just like the wisdom of investment. Short-term fluctuations will not determine the final destination of wealth. Patience and foresight are the key to determining the future. Just like a bottle of top-quality wine, it takes years to carve, and the accumulation of wealth also requires time to settle and accurate decision-making. Let your mind gradually calm down. Think about imagine standing among the barrels in the winery, gently touching the wines that have been treasured for many years. Every drop of fine wine embodies the wisdom of time, and every breath brings future harvest and rewards. With every breath, you feel your connection with this ancient land. The growth of grapevines requires patience, and so does the growth of investment. Today's sowing determines the future harvest. Take a deep breath quietly and feel the calmness and confidence. With every breath, you feel more and more calm and peaceful. The body and mind are completely relaxed, full of the energy of health and wealth. Let go of all worries and let them gradually fade away with your breath, just as the winemakers in Athens wait for the grapes to mature and the investors wait for wealth to grow. Your patience will eventually bring rich rewards. Feel the tranquility and relaxation of every moment accumulating in your body and mind like wealth. As the journey tonight ends, take this sense of tranquility and fall into a deep sleep. You are accumulating precious wealth for your health and future. Good night, my friend. I wish you a sweet dream full of health and wealth. The investment thinking behind the Athens winery, Part 1. Revelation of wealth under the vines. As night falls, the streets of Athens gradually quiet down. The Parthenon in the distance shines in the moonlight, while the wineries outside the city are still brightly lit. The aroma of wine permeates the air, and the melodious sound of the harp floats out of the tavern, accompanied by people's laughter. In this city-state, wine is not just a drink. It is a culture, a social tool, and even an investment, an accidental opportunity. The protagonist of the story, Simon, a young Athenian businessman, is sitting in his tavern, staring at the wine glass in his hand. His family has run this tavern for generations, but his father has always told him, if you want to be really rich, you can't just sell wine, but own the land for winemaking. Simon has always been skeptical about this until that day. He met Farragos, one of the richest winery owners in Athens. The secret of wealth Farragos is a silver-haired but vigorous old man. He smiled and said to Simon, "Young man, do you know why this glass of wine is worth this price?" Simon thought for a while. Because it tastes mellow. Farragos shook his head. Taste is of course important, but what really determines the price is the land, time, and brand. Land determines the quality of grapes. Time determines the scarcity of wine. Brand determines how much people are willing to pay for it. These words were like a lightning bolt, hitting Simon's heart. He always thought that doing business is buying low and selling high. But he never thought that real wealth does not come from transactions, but from the accumulation of assets and the compound interest of time. Lesson 1. Investment is more important than trading. Farragos invited Simon to visit his winery. It was a vast vineyard planted with the best quality grape varieties, with the most advanced winemaking facilities and the most well-known brands. If I were just a wine dealer, I wouldn't be standing here today, Farragos said lightly. Simon nodded and began to understand that he could only earn a small difference in price by simply doing business. And the person who owned the winery was the real manipulator of the market. The opportunity came a few days later. Simon heard a piece of news. There was an old winery outside the city, and it was going to be sold because the owner had passed away. Many people thought that the winery was in disrepair and worthless. But Simon recalled Farragos' words and decided to go and see it for himself. When he stepped on the land, he smelled the aroma of grapes in the air. The soil under his feet was soft and nutritious, and the vines seemed to be withered, but still full of vitality. Simon's heart moved. This might be the starting point of his real wealth, but the problem was that he didn't have enough money. How could he raise funds? How could he revitalize this abandoned winery? The night breeze blew gently through the vineyard, and the moonlight sprinkled on Simon's determined face. He knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he would never let it slip away. Part 2. Financing. Leverage. The night wind blew over the vines, and Simon stood in front of the abandoned winery with a question constantly circling in his mind. How can he raise enough funds to buy this seemingly abandoned but full of potential land? Although the land looks shabby, the soil is fertile, the climate is pleasant, and it is not far from the city of Athens. If it can be renovated, it will definitely produce the best quality wine. However, the winery's asking price is 200 drachmas, which is almost an astronomical figure for Simon. Step 1. Evaluate assets and maximize leverage back in his tavern. Simon carefully counted his assets. He had a deposit of 50 drachmas on hand, and the operation of the tavern was relatively stable, earning a profit of 10 drachmas every month. But it was far from enough to support the purchase of the entire winery. He realized that it was impossible to complete the transaction with his own savings alone, and he needed external financial support. Step 2. Find a partner. Simon came up with a bold idea. He could attract investment. He began to look for rich people in Athens who were interested in wine. So he took a few bottles of wine he brewed and visited the nobles and merchants who often came to the tavern, telling them about his plan. This land is definitely an undervalued treasure. Investing in it is investing in the future. It's cheap to buy it now, but its value will double in the future. Athenians are paying more and more attention to high-quality wines. This is a trend among them. A wealthy businessman named Youlai became interested in Simon's idea. He is a businessman who owns several shops. He also likes to drink on weekdays, but has never been involved in the winemaking industry. If you can prove that this winery is worth investing in, I can consider it. Youlai took a sip of wine and said lightly. Simon immediately seized the opportunity and proposed a win-win plan. Youlai invested 100 drachmas, accounting for 40% of the shares, and became a partner. Simon invested 50 drachmas, accounting for 30% of the shares. The remaining 50 drachmas were raised through borrowing or profit replenishment. After hearing this, Youlai fell into deep thought. Simon added, "You don't have to worry about any business issues. Just provide funds, and I will be responsible for management and operation. We share the profits, but I will bear all the labor and risks." These words made Euclid's eyes light up. This is a good investment. He doesn't have to worry about anything. He can sit back and enjoy the fruits of his labor. In the end, they reached an agreement. Step 3. Loan financing. Even with Euclid's funds, Simon still needed 50 drachmas. He thought of temple loans in Athens. Many wealthy temples would provide low-interest loans, especially if the borrower had assets to pledge. He took the operating income certificate of his tavern and applied for a loan from the financial officials of the Temple of Apollo. After several days of review, the temple agreed to his request and lent him 50 drachmas, which would be repaid in 3 years with extremely low interest. Step 4. Purchase a winery and officially launch the plan. After raising funds, Simon quickly reached a deal with the seller and became the new owner of the winery. He stood on his newly purchased land, took a deep breath, and felt the huge potential hidden here. But the problem is that his challenge has just begun. How can he turn this abandoned winery into a real prime location? Part 3. Reviving the winery and creating value. Simon was excited and nervous after successfully purchasing the winery. Owning this land is only the first step, and how to turn it into real wealth is the key. The winery has been abandoned for many years. The buildings are dilapidated. The vineyards are overgrown with weeds, and there is almost no infrastructure that can be used immediately. Simon knew that if he did not adopt a wise strategy, his investment might turn into a disaster. Therefore, he must develop a clear plan to maximize the leverage effect and maximize limited resources. Step 1. Use existing resources to repair infrastructure. Simon has limited funds. He cannot hire a large number of workers to renovate the winery. He can only rely on himself and some craftsmen who are willing to work for low wages. So he found a group of free laborers in Athens and promised them the wages are low in the short term, but they can get dividends or higher salaries when the winery makes a profit in the future. Some of the wine produced by the winery in the future can be provided as compensation. This option incentive approach made the workers willing to join his plan at a lower cost. They began to repair the dilapidated grapevine racks, clean the wine cellars, and strengthen the building structure to make the winery have the most basic production conditions. At the same time, Simon himself also did it himself. His hands were covered with mud, repairing the cellar, rebuilding the fermentation barrels, and painting the exterior walls of the building with new paint to make the winery look brand new. Step 2. Introduce innovative brewing technology to enhance product competitiveness in Athens. The quality of the wine determines its market position. Simon knew that in order to make the winery truly a golden location, it was not enough to rely on the geographical location alone, and the core competitiveness lay in the quality of the wine. He began to study different winemaking techniques and even went to areas such as Corinth and Samos to learn from local winemakers. He found that different grape varieties have different adaptability to soil, and the most suitable varieties need to be selected for planting. The fermentation method affects the flavor, and some new technologies can make the wine more mellow. The storage method has a great impact on the taste of the wine. If better pottery jars and oak barrels can be introduced, the quality of the wine will be raised to a higher level. He decided to improve the traditional winemaking method, not only using better grapes, but also adjusting the fermentation time and purchasing better oak barrels for aging. Risks of innovation. Many Athenian winemakers thought these changes were too radical and advised Simon to follow traditional methods, but Simon knew that if he just blindly imitated others, his winery would never surpass his competitors. So he firmly implemented his plan, incorporated new technologies into the brewing process, and began to produce the first batch of wine. Step 3. Marketing and brand building. The winery's wine is ready, but the question is how to make the market accept it and willing to buy it at a high price. Simon realized that good wine needs a good story to market. He decided to build a high-end, mysterious, and culturally rich brand image around the winery. He named the winery The Gift of Dionysus and made up a legendary story. This vineyard is said to be the site of the mysterious temple of Dionysus. Anyone who drinks this wine will gain the protection and wisdom of the gods. This story quickly aroused interest in the Athenian market, especially those wealthy businessmen, philosophers, and politicians who not only wanted to drink wine, but also wanted to drink wine with stories. Simon also invited some well-known poets and philosophers to taste it for free and asked them to discuss the flavor of this wine in the tavern. This intellectual marketing strategy made The Gift of Dionysus quickly popular in the upper class. Pricing strategy. In the first year, he did not rush to expand production, but deliberately kept the supply of wine low, creating a sense of scarcity and raising prices. He developed a grading system for the winery, with high-end versions of wine only available to the nobility and civilian elite, while ordinary versions of wine were sold to a wider market. He established a pre-order system, allowing wealthy businessmen and nobles to pay deposits in advance to ensure that they could receive future wine payments. Step 4. Reinvest capital and expand the winery. The profits in the first year gave Simon enough cash flow, and he immediately reinvested the profits to buy more land and expand the scale of the winery. He hired more craftsmen and workers, turning the winery from a small vineyard into one of the most influential wineries in Athens. At the same time, he began to export wine to Sparta, Corinth, and the Greek colonies in Asia Minor, allowing his brand to gradually move towards the entire Greek world. In the end, the once abandoned winery truly became a prime location. But the story is not over yet. How will Simon face new challenges? Will his competitors begin to imitate his model? How long can his business empire last? Part 4. Competition, crisis, and the peak of the business empire. Simon's winery was successful. The once dilapidated land has now become a symbol of wealth in Athens and even the entire Greek world. Nobles rushed to taste the gift of Dionysus. Poets chanted praises at dinners, and businessmen lined up to book next year's wine. However, true success is never smooth sailing. Just as Simon's winery was at its peak, a series of challenges followed: the rise of competitors, economic crisis, and supply chain difficulties. If these crises could not be resolved, his winery would likely decline rapidly after its glory. Phase 1. Imitation of competitors and market changes. Simon's success caused a huge sensation in Athens and naturally attracted a large number of imitators. New wineries have emerged using similar marketing methods and winemaking techniques, and even began to copy Simon's brand story, some claiming that their wineries were built on the ruins of temples, and some claiming that their wines are the choice of the gods on Mount Olympus. At the same time, some wealthy merchants and nobles began to acquire vineyards around Athens and invested heavily in production, hoping to get a piece of the pie. They were even willing to sell wines of similar quality at a lower price to grab market share. Faced with competitive pressure, Simon did not panic, but began to think how to ensure that his brand remains unique, how to deal with price wars without damaging his profits, how to further expand his business empire. He realized that the value of his brand lies not only in the quality and mythology of the wine, but also in the identity of the customers. So he adopted a series of strategies to consolidate the market, establish the Dionysus Winery Club, which only nobles, philosophers, and politicians can join, and have priority access to limited wines, forming a symbol of social identity. Introducing private, customized wines, targeting the richest customers. customizing special formulas of wine according to personal tastes to enhance brand uniqueness, sponsor theaters and festivals in Athens, making his wine the official wine of the Athens Drama Festival and sports events, thereby occupying a dominant position in the hearts of the public. The result, although there were many competitors, no one could really shake Simon's position. Phase Roman II. Economic crisis and financial wisdom, however. The market was not always prosperous. One year, Athens experienced a severe economic recession. The war consumed a lot of resources. The wealth of the nobles shrank, and the purchasing power of civilians declined, resulting in a significant reduction in the demand for high-end wines in the entire market. Simon's winery faced a thorny problem if the nobles stopped buying wine in large quantities. His high-end market would collapse. At this time, he thought of a concept of financing leverage. He worked with bankers and merchants in Athens to launch a pre-sale investment model. Customers can pay a certain amount of deposit in advance, lock in future wine payments, and enjoy lower prices. This not only ensures the cash flow of the winery, but also makes customers willing to continue consuming. Expand the export market. He began to cooperate with traders in Asia Minor to export wine to cities outside the Greek world, such as Alexandria in Egypt and Roman colonies in Italy. Adjust product line in order to cope with the consumption downgrade in the market. He launched the gift of Dionysus Classic Edition. Although the price is lower, it still maintains the image of a high-end brand to cover more customer groups. This series of measures allowed his winery to survive the economic crisis and even further expand its market share when competitors went bankrupt. The third stage, the expansion of the winery and the establishment of a business empire after surviving the crisis. Simon was not satisfied with the status quo. He understood that real wealth comes from large-scale operations and monopolizing the market. So he decided to do something that seemed extremely crazy at the time: acquire competitors and bring the entire Athens wine market under his control. He took advantage of the low price acquisition opportunities brought by the economic crisis to buy several troubled wineries and integrate their resources to double his production scale. He monopolized the supply channels of the best quality grapes to ensure that only his winery could obtain the best raw materials. He reached an agreement with the government of Athens to make his wine the designated wine for official banquets and temple sacrifices, further consolidating the brand position. At this point, he was no longer just a winery owner, but the overlord of the entire Athenian wine industry. Stage 4. ultimate thinking about wealth and life. Simon's wealth grew to a level that ordinary people could hardly imagine. He owned multiple wineries, a trade network throughout Greece, and the power to influence politics and culture. However, on a quiet night, he sat in his wine cellar, looking at a glass of wine in his hand, and fell into deep thought. What is the ultimate meaning of wealth? How long can the empire I built last? Can my descendants keep this wealth? He thought of many business empires that were once glorious, but eventually declined for various reasons. He understood that if a business empire could not continue to innovate and adapt to the changes of the times, it would eventually fail. So he began to work on inheritance and future layout. Cultivate successors, he sent his heirs to the best institutions in Athens to study philosophy, economics, and management to ensure that they could control the future of the winery. Diversify investment. He began to invest part of his wealth in emerging industries in Athens, such as olive oil, shipping, and construction, to reduce dependence on a single market. Establish a winery college. He decided to create a college specializing in grape planting and brewing, so that young people in Athens can learn this technology, so that the winery can become a symbol of knowledge and culture, rather than just a commercial entity. Finally, on a sunny afternoon, he stood in his vineyard, looking at the rows of ripe grapes, and smiled with satisfaction. The abandoned land has now become a prime location. The dilapidated winery has now become one of the greatest industries in Athens. His name, like his wine, will be remembered for a long time. And a relaxed and warm blessing night falls, and the stars shine on the streets of Athens. Perhaps at this moment, a young businessman is drinking Dionysus's gift in a tavern, dreaming that he can also build his own business empire. At this moment, you are ready to fall asleep. May you have a peaceful and sweet sleep tonight, and may your dreams, like this vineyard, bear the sweetest fruits. Good night.